Karmelo Anthony be like in prison? Whoo, boy, I can already see the implications with a video like this, the reach that this is going to have. As I begin this, let me first start by saying welcome any new people who have no idea about this channel. After Prison Show, welcome to this. You're probably wondering to yourself, who is this guy and what's he talking, like, why is he talking about this? For anybody who doesn't know, I'm Joe, the creator of After Prison Show. Been doing prison-related content for about 10 years now. Personally served 7 years in prison myself. Locked up many different times throughout my life. Prior to me getting released from 7 years in prison, I was constantly in and out of trouble myself. So I consider myself a bit of a prison expert, a criminologist, a jailhouse lawyer. I know quite a bit about law, know quite a bit about criminal justice, so that brings me to this topic here today, which is probably the biggest topic in our country, maybe even in the world, Craig. Karmelo Anthony, young man, 17 years old, who stabbed to death, bludgeoned Austin Metcalf, a fellow schoolmate, being referred to as a bully of Karmelo Anthony as well, given why the situation took place that would cost that young man his life. As I get up into this, I'm going to let you know, I'm going to do my damnedest to, keep this as unbiased as possible. But ultimately, I'm going to call it for what, I see. I'm also going to offer my opinion, potentially even expert at that, in relation to what's going on here and what could very likely end up coming from all of this. And I also want to say, as I begin this, I hate how black and white this whole thing has become, how racist it's become. There's things that I find interesting. The GoFundMe or the crowdfunding campaign, I know it's not GoFundMe, Go Send That, Did You Send That, whatever it's called, that raised over $400,000, initially being raised for this young man's defense, but now is being changed for living expenses, potentially even buying a house. I think that it's crazy that, they were in this $1 million mansion and saying, hey, look, we're not buying a house, but now we're buying a house. Whatever with all of that. I don't come at this from a racist standpoint. I need that to be very emphatically known. But I hate how racially divided this situation has become. Other cases have been brought into question because of this particular situation. What about Kyle Rittenhouse? What about George Zimmerman? Actually seeing the George Zimmerman situation get brought into this, it made me question, where this took place at. Is there such a thing as a stand your ground law? George Zimmerman took place in Florida, killing Travion Martin, a young kid, and that was a huge deal. And George Zimmerman got off in that situation. And now fast forward 15 years later, or however long it's been since that case, you got Karmelo Anthony claiming self-defense and that Austin Metcalf was a bully. And again, it just made me question where this took place at. Being in Texas, does Texas have a stand your ground law? And they do, which could change everything for this defense. Now, I want to go ahead and call this for what I initially thought of this situation. And again, you're looking at a prison expert here, a guy who knows quite a bit about the law, should have been a lawyer, but certainly know it from the opposite side, being on the opposite side of those bars. Exactly where I feel like Karmelo Anthony is going to be. Hence the whole title of this video, what will Karmelo Anthony be like in prison? Real quick, let's just go ahead and kick this hornet's nest as much as we possibly can. And I hate that. Again, I'm not doing this for the racial divide. I'm just playing devil's advocate. That's what I do quite a bit here. I do like to ask the tough questions. What is it going to be like if Karmelo Anthony goes up into that courtroom and receives football numbers? 20 years, 15 or more. You know, what if he gets life? This is Texas. Texas don't play that shit for real. Yeah, George Zimmerman, stand your ground. That was in Florida. This is Texas. We're talking, you might as well be in two totally different places for sure. You know, Texas is definitely tough when it comes to the law. But just as much as what will the reaction be like if this guy, this young man does receive, 15 plus years, 15, 20 years, what will the reaction be like if he receives virtually nothing? I say virtually nothing because I don't foresee this guy getting nothing. Okay, you got a young man that lost his life. Then again, look at the George Zimmerman case. Travion Martin lost his life. George Zimmerman, I don't think he got nothing. Will Karmelo Anthony be as lucky? So real quick, let me go to the real point that I'm trying to make before we get to what this guy would be like in prison. The fact of the matter is this: stand your ground or self-defense. They're two different things that both tie into the same exact thing. To claim self-defense, you got to think about a state that doesn't have a stand your ground law. My home state, we don't have that. But there's states that do have stand your ground laws and there's states that don't. So trying to claim self-defense in states that don't is going to be a hell of a lot harder. But when it comes to self-defense, forget stand your ground for just a moment. When I think of that, to claim self-defense here, your life had to be in imminent danger. You had to be in fear for your life in order to take a life. Does that make sense? But maybe with stand your ground, it's different. I did a little bit of research on that prior to filming this video that I know is going to do nothing short of stir the hornet's nest. From what I read about stand your ground, it's as simple as a threat, feeling threatened for some sort of harm, I believe, or in fear that some sort of harm will be brought to you. When I was first starting to think about this case and the fact that, there was this crowdfunding campaign that was raising hundreds of thousands of dollars, $500,000, I'm thinking to myself, I don't give a damn. You could raise $2 billion. It's not going to matter the amount of money that you raise because there ain't going to be a lawyer that's going to be good. And it don't matter the lawyer. When it comes to the simple premise of in self-defense, was your life in imminent danger? But that's a flawed way of thinking too, because you got to think about this. You find the right lawyer with the right connections to the right prosecutor and judge, and then you got the cahoots of, look, this is just a big misunderstanding. And here's the other thing too. Favoritism will certainly come into play, right? The right lawyer is going to be able to grease the right pockets. There is a potential that Buddy could get off on this situation. They live in a state where the law is the law. There is a stand your ground law. And there's also not a lot of what I feel like is good information coming out about this case, which I find to be the craziest damn thing. In other cases, Kyle Rittenhouse, and I hate to compare all of this, but that's just the way that it is because that's what people have been doing. So let's just use these cases. Kyle Rittenhouse, George Zimmerman, I like to believe, and I don't know this to be the truth, and I'm sure people will crucify me in the comments letting me know if I'm wrong about this, but I like to believe in those cases, they were somewhat cut and dry in terms of what was actually taking place. This particular case doesn't feel like that. If I think back to George Zimmerman, and let's just use him as the perfect example here, because he did have stand your ground. I don't know that Kyle Rittenhouse did. Maybe he did. George Zimmerman's claim was that Travion Martin was attacking him, right? Wasn't that how that went? And for that reason, he used deadly force and shot him. In this particular case, you've got Karmelo Anthony claiming that Austin Metcalf was bullying him, potentially attacking him, putting his hands on him, and then Karmelo Anthony saying, put your hands on me again and see what happens, something along those lines. I feel like for whatever reason in this particular case, there's just too much bad information that's out there. I'm hearing about the knife that Karmelo Anthony had in his backpack or wherever he had it. Was it even a knife? And if it was, why did he have it? I think that that's going to come into play. Right after the Karmelo Anthony situation takes place, you got another young man in the same state who brings a gun to school and starts, letting loose in the school. And I'm sure his situation is going to be a similar bullying situation. Is bullying enough to justify these heinous, egregious actions? My personal opinion is no. My personal opinion is no. Because if you brought a knife to school, buddy, hey, that could almost be seen as premeditated. What you got that knife for in the first place? You're going to be fighting a slippery slope with this case, I'm trying to tell you. So, one of two things is going to happen in the end of it. Oh, and let me go back to the knife situation too real quick, because I know there's going to be people who say this in the comment section. There's also other information coming out that it wasn't exactly a knife. It was a cleat sharpener. I don't know. Like I said, there's just way too much bad information out here. But let me go ahead and focus on what this is all about. Karmelo Anthony going to prison. Choo, boy. Hey, man, you going to prison in Texas, too? I don't give a damn if you go in that joint for, what's the low gonna be here? What's Buddy charged with anyways? Is this first-degree murder, second-degree murder? I gotta actually look that up. It just says the charge of murder. Oh, first-degree murder. First-degree murder is premeditated. That means that you meant to do it, you planned to do it, all that good jazz. If he is able to beat this charge down, because ultimately here's how it's gonna go. This paid lawyer, whoever they end up with, he's going to the prosecution and he's going to be looking for the deal. Listen, self-defense, stand your ground. What are we looking at? The prosecutor comes back and says, best I'm going to do is second-degree murder or manslaughter. And Buddy's looking at anything from about 5 to 20. If that's the case, the lawyer's going to be like, F no, not going for that at all. And we're going to take this sucker to a jury trial. You don't want a bench trial unless you got the right judge. And if it's the same judge that lowered the bond from $1 million to $250,000, well, maybe you might want to try that judge. But if you don't got that judge, well, you're going to have to try your luck with a jury trial. Now, with a jury, you're going to get an opportunity to pick out the jurors, or at least to a certain degree, pick out your jurors. You're going to be tried amongst 12 of your peers. They're going to definitely try Buddy as an adult because of the fact that he's 17 years old. And going in front of that jury, you're going to have to try to convince them and prove that this was self-defense and this was stand your ground. There is the potential you could beat this. But if you don't, the jury will make their recommendation with sentencing, and your ass is going to be going to prison. I don't give a damn if it's for 5 years, 2 years, 18 months, or 20 years. That's not what I'm here to talk about. I'm here to talk about what this young man's going to be like in prison. This is a guy that comes from a good family, a family with a father and mother both present in his life. Prison is going to undo all that shit. This is a kid that was involved in sports, potentially could have had a collegiate career, which nowadays is better than even going to the league. But all of that shit could be undone by this situation, which I truly feel like it will be. Prison is going to absolutely suck for this young man. Because if he was worried about bullying out in the world, well, he's going to definitely deal with some bullying when he gets to prison. With as politically and racially charged as this story is, shoot, boy, the gangs is going to be at this guy in full force. Everybody's following this story, and everybody's going to want a piece of the pie. Texas, man, hey, the racial gangs there, man, you're going to have your hands full. There's going to be people who want to get at this kid, and then there's going to be those that want to protect him. Get with us. We got you. We're not going to let anything happen to you. And for that particular reason right there alone, I don't think that anything's going to happen to this kid. I think that he's going to be A-okay wherever he goes, because those that protect him have been following this the entire time, seeing the amount of money. This joint, and this is sad too, because for the victim's family, which we haven't even talked about at all here, I'm going to say this. I don't care how it sounds. It's just how I perceive it, trying to look at this, not so much in the racial bullshit light that all of this is being spread out to be in, but just as an observer. So take it how you want to take it. Austin Metcalf, as it's reported, bullied Karmelo Anthony. Carmelo Anthony did what he did, took the life of Austin Metcalf, stabbed him in the heart because of whatever altercation took place. I'm not picking a side here. But what I do feel like is some bullshit is the fact that this whole Carmelo Anthony movement is really kind of bullying the family of Austin Metcalf. How you took that young man's life because he was bullying you, but now what y'all trying to do is bully the family up out the way so that you can paint this victim picture. And maybe that's what you got to do. Hey, if you're going to stand any chance at all of this thing working out, y'all need to sell as many t-shirts as possible, raise as much money as possible. And again, I'm just sharing this, and now it's probably going to start to sound a little menacing, but no racial undertone about it at all. That's the bullshit that I see in this case, right? We're going to paint this young man out to be the victim. But he don't look like the victim coming out with that mean mug, getting released. Don't even, man, hey, if it was me in that position, I'd have been coming out, kissing the ground, pulling in the air, trying to showcase how much my freedom means to me. But I see this smug punk. I don't see a victim in him. And for that, don't go so hard crucifying me in the comments. Again, I'm just calling it for what I'm just calling it for what it is. For that, yo, every little nook and cranny of this shit is going to be dissected up in the courtroom. So anyways, Buddy will be okay when he gets to prison because he will be protected. And those that he's protected by will be paid for that protection. You best believe it won't even really be like an extortion situation. We don't got to look at it like that. Hey, look, everything in life nowadays costs money. You going to know that the opposition and the other side wants to get at this kid when he gets to prison. So for that, we're going to keep him okay. Just consider it like a mortgage payment or paying a little bit of rent. How much is the rent in that new place anyways? Forgive me. I shouldn't crack any jokes. There's nothing to be laughing about in this situation. I hate it for both sides. I really do. You know, neither one of these families wanted to be put in this situation at all. Could more have been done to prevent this? Was Austin Metcalf really the bully that, he's made out to be? Why would Carmelo Anthony have a knife in the first place? Those are like rhetorical questions I ask, but I know plenty of people are going to answer them for me. It is sad for both sides, for the families of both sides. I can't really predict how I feel like this is going to go in court. It's going to go one of two ways. It's going to be a little bit of time. I don't foresee this being no time. I will say that. He is definitely going to do some time. I do make predictions on pretty high-profile cases. My track record is pretty high when it comes to predicting these type of things. Tekashi 6ix9ine, the O.J. Simpson parole hearing situation, or a couple of cases that come to mind. Shit, what was Buddy down in Florida, the old Joker son of a bitch? Called that to a T what they was going to do to him. If I had to give you my prediction on how much time this kid's going to get, I'm going to say it's probably going to be 5 to 10. Ain't a whole hell of a lot, might not even be enough, but to others, probably way too much. As I wrap this up, I'll ask each and every one of you to stop being so damn nasty. Take a step back for a moment. Stop having so much hate in your heart. It's an ugly world. I'm raising a 2-year-old in it. And God, I hate this for him the most. We got to do better, people. All the way around, white, black, we got to do better. I think I'm going to run for president on that note. You guys let me know down in the comments how much time you think this kid's going to get, if he gets any time at all that you think. And I'll look forward to hearing what you have to say in relation to this. Thank you for allowing me to share my piece. And as always, until next time, enjoy life, the free world. Never take a moment for granted, and make the most of every day.